Hey everybody, Idris here from Just Another Night. So for those of you who tuned in last week, you'll know I did a review on Batman the Killing Joke. I also left it to you guys to decide on which comic book I'll review today. So if you haven't already guessed it by the hat, today's book for review is going to be Marvel's Eternals. So before we jump into it, I want you to go like, subscribe and comment down below how your week's been going, what you think of the video so far. So let's get into it. So the book itself was written originally back in 1976 by Jack Kirby. He's quite a big author over at Marvel. He's done quite a lot of their comics. It was then taken on by Neil Gaiman. It's a very niche book, I have to say. Not a lot of issues were released. It's got quite a very limited run. But nevertheless, it's definitely a good book. Like, the artwork is very detailed in it, and I do recommend reading it. The issue I have here is actually the third volume, I believe. It covers issues 1 to 7 in that series. The stories talks about these beings that came to Earth that created the Eternals, the main cast of characters. So these Celestials themselves, they're essentially like a form of God in the Marvel Universe. They basically came to Earth at some point prior to humans existing. They then took a few of these they called them, I believe, Homo Protus or something along those lines, and they basically experimented on 100 of these to create these beings called the Eternals. Now, like, the sole purpose for the Eternals was, from what they understand, is to preserve Earth. So I did have to do quite a bit of back reading on this issue, just to sort of understand what's going on and what's happened previously. It is quite an interesting book. It's quite philosophical almost to a sense. It's almost kind of like the Bible of the Marvel Universe, essentially. As I said, so the Eternals, there's 100 of them. They've been around for quite a while. Their sole purpose is to protect the Earth. On the flip side, they did also create another group, which were known as the Deviants. Now, the Deviants were a race that essentially opposed the Eternals. They were created, what you later on find out, is as a form of nourishment for the Celestials. No two Deviants are the same, and that's what's unique about them. So they refer to themselves as the Changing People. They each have different sort of form factors, and they're not very human-like. Whereas the Eternals, on the other hand, they have like a human form, and they do live among us, well, essentially in the Marvel Universe. So this story basically brings the Eternals to the modern age. You find out that only a handful of them are currently about, and they're only mentioned. And what's happened is they've lost their memories. Icarus is one of the sort of leaders of the Eternals, and he's basically trying to get the other ones back in, essentially. The first person he approaches is Maricus, and he has the ability of speed, so he's significantly faster than the others. And what happens throughout is you follow these set of characters and how they start to come to terms with that they're not human and they have some sort of ability. It's quite an interesting story because you are following a group of people and how they come together, which is quite unique. It does make it a little hard to follow at times, because the story jumps at parts and you almost feel like you've missed something. But as I said, it's a big cast of characters, so it is quite a big story to follow. Essentially, you find out that one of their fellow Eternals created some illusion previously, which rid the remaining Eternals of their memories. You also find out that there's a lot more out there and that they need to be found. The main premise of this volume is that there's a Celestial that's currently buried in the Earth, and they're trying to the Deviants are trying to bring him back. You see, they're under the assumption that the Celestial's their god. Now, the story ends in quite a weird twist in the plot. So you find out the Celestial, actually, because he's been put into this slumber and he's been betrayed by his other Celestials, that he wants to just destroy the Earth and he wants to seek revenge. But upon awakening, he sort of changes his mind and he decides to monitor Earth and see what happens before he decides on whether or not he destroys us. It's a good story because it does involve other characters in the Marvel Universe. So Iron Man plays quite a big role in it. He's actually working with Thena, who is one of the Eternals, but at this point she doesn't know it. Later on, it's quite a funny encounter where she just completely overpowers him once she's fully awakened. But the end of the story, as I said, is quite good. It's almost the start of these next chapters. Rather than it ending on the end, it ends with the beginning. And you know something big's about to come up. It's definitely worth a read and definitely worth checking out. So, The Eternals isn't a comic that I followed. It was something that I hadn't actually heard about until quite recently. The only reason I found out about it was because of the movie that's going to be playing a part in the next phase of the Marvel Universe. It's quite interesting because that's where I heard about it first. And again, like, I never heard this mentioned before. You actually find out that there's quite a few characters in this sort of universe. Thanos is actually one of the Eternals. He's almost a deviant. He was created by a fusion of the Kree and probably another race, I can't remember which it was, on the planet Titan. And that was quite interesting. As I said, I did have to read a lot behind the scenes to find out what's happened previously, who these people are, and how they've come to be. The only reason I actually got this comic was because it was picked up for me by some friends for my birthday. Cheers to them because we're doing the review for it now. But as I was saying, it's definitely worth the read. And as I mentioned, there is a movie that's going to be coming out. The cast was announced back at Comic-Con. I can't remember if it was last year now. And it is going to be featuring some prominent actors from the Game of Thrones series. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye out for that. And hopefully it will definitely be a good film to watch. So here's my opinions on it. I think it's a very good story. I do like it because it's almost got that sort of like biblical, philosophical kind of backstory to it. You know, about the whole creation of the earth and people. And Tony asks in this about whether or not they're gods. And the reply to that is yes, they're as close as you're going to get to gods. The artwork's quite good. It's not my favourite. It is very detailed, but sometimes I prefer a more sort of sharper look, if that makes sense. Again, I did struggle to follow the story at times because it does seem like it jumps a bit. But other than that, the actual premise is really, really good. I did enjoy it, and it's definitely got me intrigued for what happens next. And I'll definitely be picking up the next volumes to see what happens and how it goes. 100% will definitely go watch the film as well. Like I said, it's very good. It's very sort of space-esque as well to an extent. And there's a lot that's still unknown about it. So you only get to meet a handful of these characters, and it ends with them being told to go and find the remaining Eternals. And as you know, there is 100 of them, so there's going to be various abilities and personalities that you get to learn about. Almost like the X-Men, you know, it has a huge array of characters in it. So it's always fun seeing the different teams and the different combinations. So yeah, 100% recommend the book, and definitely recommend you guys check out the film or even pick up a copy of The Eternals and give it a read. Okay, so for next week I figured I'd mix it up a bit. We've done 2 comics, so I figured I'd shift up to mangas. Next week I'll be talking about One Piece. It's one of my favourite mangas out there, favourite anime series. I've been following it for quite a few years, well, as long as I remember, to be honest. So stay tuned next week to hear about One Piece. So guys, thanks for watching today. That's the end of the video. Let me know what you guys think of The Eternals if you've read it before, and let me know what you'd want to see in the future as well. I'll definitely be doing Deceased eventually. Not next week, but I'll 100% have it ready for you guys the week after. So be sure to comment, like and subscribe down below. Like I said, we always welcome feedback, and we always just want to give you what you guys want. So once again, thanks for watching guys. Bye for now.